Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to a really special event for us here in Fireside Adoptees and in the Fireside Adoptees Constellation group. We have a distinguished guest here, Emma Stevens, who is a writer that also has some interesting things to share that are unique for us as people who want to listen into elements of her story and hear stories about not just about her adoption, but also the life after, as in terms of how she's been navigating and integrating her different elements of her personality. And I want to say, first of all, Emma, we're really happy to have you here and definitely appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Definitely
so great
welcome.
To see everyone's kind faces.
Yeah, we're really excited. We appreciate that you've been willing to come to share with us, because this is a pretty significant event for you. But I'd like to know if you could, first of all, there's something you've come on kind of to talk about here that's pretty important. Would you like to just summarize real quickly what that is, and then we can move on?
Well, sure. And I am here to stand up for myself, but really I'm here to stand up for all of us that have been either marginalized or minimized and told that we needed to turn our light down because we were shining too bright, or it wasn't permissible to be our true selves. And my announcement is that to tell my story, and I didn't want to wait one more minute, I used a pseudonym as Emma Stevens, and she is my brand and she's part of me, but my true name is Linda Campbell Pevac. And it's fabulous to be here.
Welcome, Linda.
Thank you.
I mean that in so many ways. It's an advent. It's a coming into your own, and it's exhilarating. It gives me chills to think about it. And of course, we've been talking about it, in our individual correspondence for a while now. So I'm thrilled for you to be able to have this chance, and honored that you would come and share this with us. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome, but thank you, because you've given me a platform. And I know we've put our heads together, you, me, and Amanda, and a lot of other people that have, Lori Holden, that has helped say, how can we best deliver this? And it really felt right. And so I'm really excited about it. And I'm so appreciative.
Great. Thank you. Well, with the story that you have, a lot of people are familiar a little bit with the stories of Emma Stevens, but why don't you tell us a little bit about Linda Pevac?
Let's see. Well, I started getting involved in the adoptee community about, 5 or 6 years ago. And I was still Linda at that point. And I cut my teeth on Haley Radke's Adoptees On, like a lot of us did. And through that, then that led to learning about Reshma McClintock and her documentary of Calcutta Is My Mother, and that she had a website called Dear Adoption. And so I was able to get a poem published on her website, and I was just thrilled. And then I drove 10 hours to Denver to watch her documentary. Then I drove another 5 hours to Dallas to watch it again, because it was so moving. And I was coming out of the fog. And that was as a same race US domestic adoptee. But what touched me about her film was getting an understanding of the next level of loss, what it's like for transracial or intercountry. And so from that point, I just got involved with the adoptee community with closed Facebook groups like we all have. And I held back for a long time and didn't respond. I just listened, because there was so much lingo, right? I didn't want to say the wrong thing. I wanted to learn. And then I started dipping my toe in, and then I started learning of writing coaches and adoptee editors, and was able to ask for help. And when I started writing my story, I realized I needed a pseudonym, because I didn't want to hurt my family, and I didn't want to, it would be irreparable damage to the relationship, and I wasn't willing to go there, but yet I still wanted to have my voice. And I was cautioned against using a pseudonym because it was so awkward and it gets complicated to navigate, which it did. But I'm really still happy that I did it, because I think I accomplished what I set out to do. But now that I am in the place where I am right now, it's time to come out and say, we're one and the same.
Wow, what an amazing thing to have the opportunity to do that, and to have navigated so much in these parallel kind of lives in a way, right?
Definitely.
If I may say that, or may call them that. So there was a point where you realized there was a need for Emma Stevens. And it sounds like you've told us a little bit about how that came about, but was it something that went over and over in your head for a long time before you realized, okay, this is how I'm going to approach this?
Well, I think the desire was within me so big that I could only think of one way to get my story out. And I think as adoptees and other people writing their story, a lot of times we'll say, I'll wait till someone passes, then I'll write my story. But I think that's also a way to never write your story.
Yeah.
So it was so big within me, I had to put pen to paper. It had to come out right then, or I felt like I was going to explode. And using a pseudonym seemed like the right thing to do. And I still believe that it was.
Absolutely understandable. And there is a note of courage in that, right? Because you still had to put all the things out there. You just knew that there was not a way to do it as directly, of course, as you would want to have the freedom to do that. Was it hard to keep the secret that you were Linda?
Yeah, it was very hard. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, smack dab in the middle of the United States. And I had reached out to Rebecca Autumn Sansom of Reckoning with a Primal Wound. And a friend of mine here in Tulsa, we got together and brought the film here to Tulsa for a showing. And it was great. And I was worried to show up as myself, but I did. But when they had the picture at the end, I suddenly got lost. And I regret not being able to be part of that picture. But I had signed off with myself that that's the way I was going to do things. And I have to be appreciative to all the podcast people that I know Sarah and Louise are here, how gracious they were of always keeping my secret. And if I ever made a faux pas and said Linda, they'd go back and edit it out. And they were always they held my secret really well. And I am very appreciative of that. And I'm glad that I don't have to ask people to do that anymore. You know, I'm Linda and Emma is a part of me, and Emma will write again. She's my brand, but she's a part of me.
And you're in the film as Linda.
And that was a decision that I made much later, because I was on the phone with Autumn saying, please take my name out. You know, I was even indecisive of having my face on the film, but I thought, oh, what are the chances of anyone seeing that? And even, you know, Autumn didn't say, that's ridiculous, Linda. You should just be proud and be in the film. She never said that. She was just very respectful, took my name out. At first it was Emma. And then I said, you know what? I think I feel stronger. Let's put Linda in. And so she changed it again.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And let's talk about, there was a decision, though, that you've reached this point of, okay, I'm ready to disclose this, that Linda and Emma are the same person. So you've been talking about keeping this a secret for a really long time, but I can imagine it being this building in you, finally reaching this point where you're ready to come forward about that. But what do you think was finally the part or the point where you were ready to come out and say, all right, this is who I am?
I think it was working in my psyche for much longer than I even admit. It was kind of running in my unconscious. And when I wrote my second book, towards the end of the book, I allude to the fact that I attribute my writing ability to this person named Emma, that she's the writer and Linda can't write. Yeah. Linda can't go on podcasts. Linda can't come here right now and talk to all you lovely people. And when I recognized I was feeling that way, that was a red flag to me, meaning that I had crossed over into some fantasy land that I have a tendency to do throughout my life. And I realized that it crossed over into a new meaning of self-worth, a lack of self-worth. And at that point, I realized how important it was for me to say, I don't have to lose Emma, but Emma's a part of Linda.
Yes.
And I finally got that. And I think, Greg, you and I had some conversations about how I was boohooing, saying, I'm going to miss Emma. I'm not going to lose Emma. She's right here.
No. And in fact, and I hate to be nerdy philosophical, but I keep casting your story in terms of Hegelian philosophy. Oh my goodness, what are you talking about? So this is not a German idealism philosophy, but there's this thing called sublation in Hegel's philosophy. What it is it's something gets made as part of something else, but the elements of it that are edifying are preserved or retained. So I feel like Emma has been sublated into Linda and presents this, I don't want to call it a composite. It's an unfolding. It's a making more open and explicit, not in graphic sense, but expressive, all the things that were actually there the whole time. And that you didn't have the freedom to talk about. And I feel like so much of your story really does come down to whether you felt free for your life throughout your life. And I know in your story, you definitely did not, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about how that was for you?
It makes me think of my favorite quote of love demands freedom. It always has, and it always will. Mm-hmm. And that's from Rob Bell. And a lot of people, including my adoptive parents, would tell me how much they love me. But it was so interesting because, you know, how you start equating love with abuse. And that's not freedom. And I lived my life oppressed, and they didn't treat me very well. And it was just something that, well, I'm glad I broke free from it, but there was a lot of conditioning that's still my daily struggle. It's my challenge to challenge those voices that tell me I'm smaller, or I need to be too small, or I need to not take up too much space. And when I used Emma, it's like she's free. She gets to say whatever she wants. She said a lot of vulnerable things that, you know, I was under the cover of that. So that was a good thing that I used Emma for, because I didn't even feel really very much shame about it, because I didn't say it, Emma said it. Anyway, it had its pros and its cons.
Do you, in the gathering place, so you had this wonderful way that you laid out these parcels of your life, the different stages of your life. It's different characters with different names, and each coming to you and you having, in a sense, to befriend these people and gain their trust. And gradually, as the book ends, they're all together in one place. And I couldn't help but think that now, as we talked about this, that Emma becomes one of the people who's now in the gathering place. Is that right?
Yes. And I should have had the character, but I didn't think of it. You're too smart for me, Greg. But Emma should have been there. She's my creative side. And that's an interesting angle to have put in there, but she's always been there. In fact, she helped me write notes to my parents when I was a young girl, when I learned how to write. And I couldn't converse with them in any other way because I'd cry. There was a lot of abuse. So I would go to my room, I'd try to get in touch with my feelings, and my only way was to express it through writing. And then I'd give them these notes. And I truly think that's how I learned how to start writing and writing to heal. Because it was really helping, and I didn't even know it, but I was helping heal myself through some very difficult times. And at the same time, it helped me develop a skill of having an emotion and then putting language to it.
What an amazing thing that can be, to find that you're able to do that. And as we've talked over time a little bit, it was kind of painful for me to think that you weren't able, as Linda, to take credit for the things Emma was doing. And I know that this is now becoming part of the integration. Did you find there were other things besides writing that you thought, this is something Emma can do, but Linda can't do this?
Wow, Greg, I just actually had a moment of just piecing together something right this moment. I used to sing during high school, and I'd get on stage, but Linda can't get on stage and sing a song, a solo. And oh my gosh, it was Emma. I'm just now putting that together, that I compartmentalized, stepped out of my body, and became someone that could do it. And it was still part of me. And now I'm realizing that more and more in 2023, that I'm present and I'm all parts are welcome within me. And Emma has helped me do quite a few things. Thank you, Greg, for that. I really just put that together right now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think when I was preparing the interview questions, I mentioned inner expert. And the reason I came up with that wording is that's how I experienced something similar to what you're talking about with Emma. There are times when I can talk to myself in a more authoritative way, in a more skilled way, and almost lose that it's still coming out of me to myself. It's reflecting back into me, but it's coming from a part of me that feels more free, more confident, more self-assured. Yeah. And I feel like that's similar in a way too. It's not the same as a pseudonym, of course, but it's allowed me to get through some things too. It may be something that a lot of people do. And it kind of brings me up to this subject again. I mentioned in the notes here about something I know very little about, which is family systems theory. I felt like that's what was in the gathering place. And I wondered if that was something consciously you did, or it's just how it poured out of you. And it seems to fit this model of different elements of your life that seem to conform to that.
I think that's more accurate, that I wrote it the way I felt it. I will say that doing the modality of EMDR in therapy really helped me, because it helped me visualize the gathering place. And then once I had that beautiful vista and the tree and the swing, then I started seeing my younger parts come and I have a conversation. And it wasn't until after I wrote the story that I researched and saw how similar it was to IFS, internal family systems.
That's the terminology I should have used. I
don't
know very much about it, but it stood out. Yeah, please keep going.
Perfect. And I think that is the way that we do our work now, is we accept all our parts, and all of us have, a lot of parts. And just like you were saying, to recognize that voice that you hear is very much a part of you. And then that gives you permission and freedom to say, I have those abilities too, and I can tap into that at any time.
Yeah, it's this state of resourcefulness that we have inside of ourselves, but because of the masks we wear, because of the roles we play, because of the people around us who need us to fit a mold, those things don't come out very well or very easily. But you're here expressing that they're coming out of you now, and I'm wondering, how does it feel to be talking about this right now?
Total freedom, total liberation. And like, I won't be able to do life in any other way ever again, because I've accepted that this is the road I want to be on. And it's sometimes awkward, sometimes messy, and sometimes not fun, but the payoff is so huge to be authentic to yourself. And when we're young, we have, like Gabor Mate says, we have two things: attachment and authenticity. Well, when we're babies, we have really not a lot of choice. We need attachment to thrive and to survive. And we'll always need attachment, but that authenticity, if you don't, you're killing a part of yourself all the time. And that's what I've done up until 7 years ago, just always just kind of slicing pieces of myself away and saying, you're not good enough. You can't show up and speak properly. Just all those things that we let our conditioning do to us. And so I'm slowly just chipping away at all that conditioning and saying, and challenging it, saying, I don't have to listen to that anymore. I don't have to live in that broken story anymore.
Do you think there's one thing more than other things that were difficult to overcome in terms of your seeking authenticity? Different challenges, but maybe one that stood out more than others?
Probably being such a people pleaser. It's hard to hold a boundary, and then it's even more difficult to hold it unapologetically. And knowing that you're hurting someone while you're doing it is not a good feeling. But if you've done it in the healthiest of ways, I've had to stand firm and say, you know, just like I said before, this is the way I do things now, and I'm going to hold to it. And I'm going to try to be healthy and try to treat people kindly, but I've got to keep my boundaries.
I'm wondering about, so this is potentially a very fearful thing to have done, to come out and do this. And you obviously have been revealing bits of it and have disclosed it more wholesale in recent weeks, but it probably comes with some fear. Do you feel as an adoptee, like, I'm experiencing fear of being in a group and talking about this? What do people think? Or are there a lot of feelings around just the act of coming out and saying this about yourself, telling people who you are?
I think that I've been plagued with, and I think a lot of adoptees feel this, an overdeveloped sense of responsibility to take care of other people's feelings, not wanting to make them feel uncomfortable. And so you will minimize yourself in order to do so. And I'm trying very hard to accept all this exposure. This is hard for me to, like yesterday, I told you it was the media blitz.
Yeah, it was.
And every time I scroll through, it's like, oh, there I am again. That was difficult because I felt like, you know, you hear that voice of, you're talking too much, you're taking up too much space, other people have troubles too. Why aren't they being on Fireside, or why are you there? So, you know, it's a lot to reckon with, but I'm willing to do the challenge of deconstructing that all the time, every day, sometimes every hour.
And I feel like, I love the word deconstruction for a lot of reasons. I want to set it against this other element here, which is integration. We talked to you about integration. This is a very integrating thing. Can you talk a little bit about what it feels like to be weaving these parts of yourself together into it's not that you were different people, but maybe someone who's more unified in who you are, in your identity?
Yeah, I would say unified really strikes a chord that feels right and true. I feel like now that I'm paying attention to my life so much, and I feel like I have mind-body connection, I'm not disconnected from my feelings anymore, and I'm accepting my reality. I'm willing to remain willing all the time, whatever the opportunity is. And oh, Greg, I got lost there. You asked me, what did you ask me specifically?
About integration, and you're doing a great job of talking about what it means for you, and how it's a bringing out of the elements that were already there, but they're in maybe a more, I hate to use words like coherent and all that, because it makes it sound like we're all scattered and unfocused, and we can be, but I'm just wondering how the experience of being more integrated now, how that feels to you.
Well, I used to think of my different parts as being so separate and different from each other. Now I don't really feel that way. because I have said you're all welcome here. And so we've all, just like in the gathering place, been talking, integrating, and we're not so much different after all. And it just feels so good to weave each other together and be supportive. And if I hear a voice that is a negative voice, then I'm more gracious to myself and saying, redirecting, reframing, saying that that's the way we used to think. This is the way we like to think now. And so it is a process, and it'll be a process for the rest of my life.
Sure.
But now that I've found it, it just feels like my whole life has been coming to this point where we are right now, and me coming out and having the honor of saying who I am. I'm not ashamed of it. This is what I'm doing. And hopefully it'll give other people permission, because so many people in the community have given me permission to do everything I'm doing right now. If it hadn't been for other people being brave and courageous, they showed me how to do it. So it's a collective effort.
I can relate to that in terms of, it's given me a lot to find that in other people in our community, and to see possibilities for myself that maybe I didn't know were there, and to find strength. And certainly when you have a wave of support behind you, all the difference that makes for you, especially emerging into something as profound as this. We've talked a little bit in our other conversations about resistance, inner and physical resistance to coming out into your own like this. Do you feel like, okay, I'm at this point, I'm at this juncture, I'm at a threshold. How do I get myself to step across it? And I'm wondering what the release feels like in your body to go, okay, I've crossed it, I'm on the other side of this, and I'm out here. Do you feel like your mind is in a different place and your body is let go of a lot of tension or anything like that?
Yes and no. And I say that because both of my parents recently passed, and that has a lot of things woven into it, good and bad and indifferent. And it makes me reevaluate adoption and just everything about myself. And I am having like a whole new identity search. Yeah, but it's helping me just move forward. And there are times where I feel like parts of me are hanging back, those that are still timid and still not sure exactly of how to do it and what to do. But at the same time, I see other parts of me way ahead down the road going, come on, you can do it. You can cross through that gate. Come on out and play. The water's fine. And so that's why I say it's a process. But being kind to myself is a huge thing. And it doesn't all have to happen in a day.
Right.
I'm making big, bold steps.
And this is one of these questions that everybody can second guess themselves on. Is there any part of it you wish you had done differently?
Mm-hmm. I had the benefit of reading Greg's questions earlier today, and I had to think about this. I really did, because I feel that everything kind of happened as it should, but there's one part. As you know, as everyone knows, healing doesn't happen in a linear fashion. Things get messy. And there was a part of my life 7 years ago that got kind of messy. And I probably hurt the ones I love the most, which are my children. We have, come to beautiful terms now. We love each other. Everything's great. But if I had anything to do over again, I wish that they hadn't gotten touched by my mess. But they were very supportive through the whole thing. We came out the other side, and maybe I taught them, what it looks like to be in a struggle and how to get through a human condition of what happens to us all. But I love them so much, how we are with our kids. We just never want to do anything that's going to hurt them or harm them.
That's a very impactful message for me too. That's what I wish I had done differently, as you know.
Yes.
How do you think Emma will continue to be a presence in the life of Linda?
Well, I know that it's a concerted effort with all my parts that make up my whole. We're going to continue growing. We're going to continue seeking and keep looking for everything as an opportunity, I believe. I have a choice. I have choices now. In my childhood, I didn't have any choice. I had to commit, or I had to submit and conform. And there was no other survival other than that. But I'm in 2023 now, and I have choice. And I'm going to keep remembering that and having an invitation to show up in my life the way I want to show up. And I get to determine that. And I think that there might be a third book to fill out the trilogy, but I'm still living it right now. So it's not going to happen as quickly as book 1 and 2 did, because I'm still living it right now. I'm already writing down and, brainstorming of what I want to include, but there might be a book.
That kind of answers this question of what lies ahead for Linda and Emma. I think that kind of answers that.
I'll be along for the ride.
Yeah. Do you hope that when the next book is ready to come out of you, that Linda is the one who writes it? I didn't ask you that, but I'm really interested in your answer.
Yes, and thank you for that, because I'll be intentional about that.
That's a great word.
And it should be that way. Not that Emma's excluded by any means, but all my parts will be helping me write the book, because they're my resources and my tools. And we all have all those parts that help us throughout our lives. If we have any moments, can I read a poem? It's very short.
Certainly. Please go ahead.
It's at the end of A Fire is Coming.
Yeah, please do.
I went to a trauma-informed yoga certification, and I did it because I didn't want to teach it, but I wanted to have awareness about it. And I also wanted to find the ending of my second book. That's really why I did the certification. And when I read this poem that was brought up in the certification, it was just it in a nutshell. And it's called Deep Springs. There are deep springs within each of us. Within this deep spring, which is the very spirit of the holy mystery, is a sound, the sound of deep calling to deep. And that's from Dr. Miriam Rose Bowman, and she's an Indigenous educator, artist, writer, and public speaker. And my last chapter, I really just kind of weave that thought and those concepts throughout the last chapter of the book. I was thrilled when I finally had the ending.
I really like how that ends. And what a great way to tie it all together. I want to thank you again for such a brave thing to do here and to share with a lot of people. You've certainly been a presence for a lot of people who've known you, who've read your books, who've listened to your podcasts, and it's just a really profound honor to be able to talk to you about this. So thank you for being here in this capacity and opening yourself up to a lot of people who I think are really happy that they had the chance to hear something like this. And we certainly wish you continued success. Is a weird word to use there, but joy for what you're now emerging into as a person that's feeling more integrated, and yes, your future probably looks a lot different to be having everything facing the same direction. I got that sense at the end of the first book that everybody was there. Mm-hmm. And they were all together, and this just feels so organically connected to your books and the story of you. So again, let me express deepest appreciation for that and for the chance to talk to you about this.
Well, I'm so appreciative to you and Amanda, and I think Raya helped with the graphic, and yes, all of you lovely people. I just can't wait to see you out there, and I can't wait to hear your questions. And joy is really what it's all about.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Greg.
So I'd like to, before I conclude here, just to welcome everybody again to the Fireside Adoptees YouTube channel, where you'll be able to watch this. And we're going to conclude the recording now here, but please come back, and thank you so much for being here with us.